It's June 1st, 1945, during the chaos of World War II. In a somber scene, a young German prisoner of war named Heinz Petry is surrounded by American soldiers. They're escorting him to a grim fate execution. Heinz is facing this fate on charges of espionage. As we watch, a priest approaches Heinz for his final confession. The young man shares a few words with the priest and then continues walking calmly toward what awaits him, a destiny that will spark controversy for years to come. What makes this story even more astonishing is that Heinz Petry was just 16 years old. In this episode of Military History, we'll delve into the tragic tale of the German teenagers executed by the United States. World War II was a tumultuous time, and it brought about many challenging situations. One of these situations involved young Heinz Petry, a German boy caught up in the midst of a global conflict. His story sheds light on the complex and often heart-wrenching decisions made during wartime. Heinz Petry's journey began when he was just a teenager. At the tender age of 16, he found himself in a situation that no one, especially not a young boy, should ever have to face. He had been accused of espionage, a grave charge during wartime. Espionage involves gathering secret information for one's own side while infiltrating the enemy's ranks. It's considered a serious offense because it can lead to the loss of valuable military secrets and lives. As Heinz was led towards his fate, the presence of a priest added a poignant dimension to the scene. The young prisoner and the clergyman exchanged a few words, perhaps seeking solace and comfort in the face of impending doom. This moment highlights the human side of war, where compassion and spirituality can offer solace even in the darkest of times. However, it's what happened next that has fueled debates and discussions for decades. The decision to execute a 16-year-old boy, even one accused of espionage, raises profound moral questions. It forces us to consider the complexities of wartime justice and the difficult choices that military authorities must make. In World War II, the United States, like other nations, had to grapple with the difficult task of maintaining discipline and order within its military ranks. When soldiers were accused of serious offenses, such as espionage, the consequences were often severe. In Heinz Petry's case, the authorities deemed execution as the appropriate punishment for his alleged actions. The execution of Heinz Petry ignited ongoing debates about wartime justice and the morality of executing a teenager. It underscores the ethical challenges of war, reminding us to reflect on past choices and the lessons they hold for future generations. Let's dive into the life of Heinz Petry, who was born on December 31st, 1928, in the town of Usen in eastern Germany. While we don't know much about his personal life, we do know that his parents ran a daycare center and were considered loyal citizens of the Nazi regime. Heinz grew up in a nation fully committed to following Hitler's orders, and from a young age, he was taught to prioritize obeying the Führer. In his world, hatred, racism, and anti-Semitism were the norm due to the influence of the National Socialist movement. During his time in primary school, Heinz was a standout student and excelled in sports. This caught the attention of German authorities, and he was selected to attend one of the many Adolf Hitler Schools. These schools, established in 1937, served as boarding institutions focused on sports and academics for German children with the highest grades. They were under the supervision of the Hitler Youth and aimed to train the future elite of the Third Reich. To be admitted, candidates' racial backgrounds, health, and their families' commitment to Nazism were thoroughly investigated. Heinz met all these criteria and quickly became one of the top students at Drakensberg Castle School. These schools weren't just about teaching standard subjects like social studies, natural sciences, and math. They were also dedicated to instilling the core beliefs of National Socialist ideology. These institutions were essentially centers for indoctrination, designed to mold young minds, erase their individuality, and turn them into unquestioning followers willing to sacrifice their lives for Hitler. Heinz remained at the school until early 1945, just after he turned 16, when his life was about to take a dramatic turn. The supervisors of the school, who also served as regional party authorities, saw in Heinz the right candidate for a risky mission. They proposed that he join the Werewolf, a secret Nazi organization founded by Heinrich Himmler, the the leader of the SS. This organization had been created to initiate a covert resistance movement against the Allies. By this time, Germany's leaders were well aware that defeat was inevitable, and the country would soon fall into the hands of the Allied powers, including England, the United States, France, and the Soviet Union. In this context, the werewolf's mission was to harass the victorious Allied forces through acts of assassination, sabotage, and terrorism. In other words, they aimed to operate similarly to the partisan groups in France, Italy, and Yugoslavia, who had resisted the Nazi occupation of their countries for years. The werewolf was meant to create chaos and make the Allied occupation as challenging as possible. Heinz was faced with a daunting decision: to join this secret Nazi organization and take part in actions that would likely be dangerous and morally complex. The world around him was crumbling, and he had to choose whether to continue down a path of blind obedience to Hitler's ideology or to make a different, potentially life-altering choice. Now let's dig deeper into Heinz Petry's journey as he joined the Werewolf, a clandestine Nazi organization. This period of his life began with military training that took place between January 15th and February 5th. During these few weeks, he learned the basics of handling pistols, rifles, and even homemade plastic explosives. The training, though intense, remained incomplete because there simply wasn't enough time to transform Heinz into a seasoned soldier. What's more, even the trainers themselves had limited battlefield experience and only a rudimentary understanding of explosives. The members of the Werewolf organization were driven by a fervent idealism. Above all, they were young individuals who couldn't accept the reality that the Third Reich, their beloved Nazi regime, was crumbling. Their determination to resist the advancing Allied forces was fueled by their deep commitment to Nazi ideology. In this historic context, Heinz crossed paths with Joseph Scheer, a 17-year-old who belonged to the local branch of the Hitler Youth. Joseph volunteered for the Werewolf, motivated by a desire to prove his bravery and, intriguingly, to restore his family's honor. Rumors swirled that Joseph's father, who managed a hotel in the city of Stahlberg, had been sentenced to death in 1944 for involvement in smuggling goods on the black market. While these rumors were never officially confirmed, they had a profound impact on Joseph, compelling him to participate in a perilous operation as a way to clear his family's name. The young recruits of the Werewolf were united not only by their allegiance to Nazi ideals, but also by personal motivations and stories of family honor. These shared convictions bound them together as they embarked on a challenging and dangerous path. Their training was a reflection of the chaotic and desperate times in which they lived. With the Allied forces closing in on Germany, Heinz and Joseph found themselves preparing for a fight that seemed increasingly futile. Their commitment to the Werewolf's cause would soon put them in situations that demanded tremendous courage and resolve. The Werewolf organization had a critical mission for Heinz Petry and Joseph Scheer. They were to venture deep behind enemy lines and spy on the United States Army. At that time, the U.S. Army was rapidly advancing into Germany. You can get a glimpse of this historic moment in newsreel footage, showing American tanks moving through cities that had been reduced to rubble by bombings. The footage captures the chaos and destruction of war as units of the 1st United States Army pressed forward, capturing key towns like Limburg while still facing German resistance. By February 1945, U.S. troops were preparing to cross the Rhine River and join forces with the British. This strategic move brought them dangerously close to the heart of Nazi Germany. German high command understood the significance of this advance, and that's where Heinz and Joseph came in. They were tasked with a reconnaissance mission, and their job was to gather crucial information about the enemy. On February 21st, the two novice spies were deployed to the Heinsberg district, located to the east of their homeland and near the American positions. For them, this was a moment filled with maximum adrenaline. They likely believed that the fate of Germany's last defense hinged on their success. They had never experienced a battlefield before, but suddenly they found themselves alone in unfamiliar territory, surrounded by Hitler's mortal enemies. A single misstep could cost them their lives, so they had to proceed with the utmost caution if they hoped to make it out safely. On February 22nd, just a day after their mission began, Heinz Petry and Joseph Scher found themselves captured by the 9th United States Army in a small village called Burden. They were discovered hiding in a ground ditch while they were in the midst of reporting on the activities of the American forces to their superiors. An important detail to consider is that the spies were dressed as civilians, not in their soldier uniforms. This distinction is crucial because had they been in uniform, they would have been treated as regular combatants and sent to prison until the end of the war. However, operating behind enemy lines without the official attire of a soldier was considered a war crime. Upon capture, the Americans took their mission seriously and subjected Petry and Scher to harsh interrogation. Under this intense pressure, the young men were compelled to confess that they were indeed conducting espionage activities for the werewolf organization. Subsequently, they were placed in a jail in the city of Ayen, where their fate hung in the balance. It was on March 29th that a war tribunal consisting of American officers convened to discuss their case. After deliberation, the tribunal reached a grave decision. Both young men were sentenced to death. The measure was approved by a 2-3 majority, and the justification for this sentence was clear. Petry and Scher must pay the highest penalty for their crime. This was intended to send a powerful message to the German people, demonstrating the determination to eradicate the poison of German militarism and Nazi ideology from the face of the earth. In a desperate attempt to escape their impending fate, the young men appealed to the tribunal and pleaded for mercy from the American generals. However, it was General William Hood Simpson, the commander-in-chief of the 9th United States Army, who ultimately rejected their plea. The execution of Heinz Petry and Joseph Scher was tied to the Werewolf Organization, a group of Nazis still resisting the Allies. The Allies were uncertain about the size and strength of this underground group. Just days before the teenagers' sentence, the werewolf had assassinated a mayor appointed by the Allies, showing their determination to resist. This led to the decision to execute Heinz and Joseph as a message to those who still supported Hitler. The execution was scheduled for June 1st, 1945, in Brunswick, Germany, a week after Germany's surrender. Just hours before, Heinz Petry wrote a farewell letter to his parents and his 9-year-old brother, Oscar. In the letter, he expressed his hopes of being pardoned and asked them to be proud of his actions, which he believed were for the love of his country. He also encouraged his younger brother to be a support to their parents. Petry and Scher were taken to a gravel quarry for their execution, where they were joined by 4 other spies awaiting the same fate. Photographers and television cameras recorded the event, as the Americans wanted to document it in detail to show the consequences to potential rebels or werewolf members. Heinz Petry was the first to be executed, receiving the last rites from a military priest. His body was placed in a coffin and removed from the scene. Joseph Scher followed, his face uncovered. The executions continued until all 6 prisoners had been shot by the firing squad. The day was marked by bloodshed and garnered significant attention from major Western media outlets. There was debate over the ages of Petry and Scher, with some arguing that they were mere children who didn't fully understand their involvement. The bodies of Heinz and Joseph were buried 3 days later in the Brunswick Cemetery. In 1948, Petry's family requested his remains be exhumed and transferred to Usen, his hometown. This story remains one of the most controversial episodes of the final phase of World War II. Some criticize the American Army's perceived coldness, while others believe the executions were necessary to prevent future Nazi uprisings. The story of Heinz Petry paints a vivid picture of the turbulent times during World War II, where young lives were deeply influenced by the ideologies and circumstances of the era. It reminds us of the moral dilemmas faced by individuals caught up in the machinery of war and how they grappled with choices that would shape the course of their lives. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support means the world to us, and it helps us keep bringing you more great content. Thanks for being part of our community.